In this tutorial, I will show how can we work with the height fields between Houdini and Unreal Engine. So with Unreal Engine, these height fields would be called the landscapes, and in Houdini they would be called volumes, height fields. And so at the end of it, we would basically start with our basic default open world landscape, and we will export it to the Houdini, add some additional layers like noise, edit it again inside Unreal, and get it back to the Houdini and edit again and add some noise to these plateaus. And basically, how can we create bidirectional communication between Unreal and Houdini with these height fields using Houdini engine. And yeah, so basically that's the tutorial for now. We're going to go through a little bit of a primer for what are height fields inside Houdini, know a little bit more about them and how they work with interact with between Unreal and Houdini. So let's get to it. Let's start by learning a little bit more about the landscapes. So what I have done is just created a basic Unreal open world example project. And what's good about this example project is because it actually comes with the actual landscape already, which is a good place to start, where we can just go ahead and export it to the Houdini, edit it, and then just bring it back to Unreal. So what I have here is the same one. You can go ahead and go to the landscape mode. You will see that there's actually by default already two layers created for it. So if you turn off one of them, you can see it actually hides Unreal logo. And if you turn off another one, you can see it's basically the opposite of it. You can think about it as basically adding these layers together. You can see that there's all this terrain around and this flat. You can see that all of this is basically added to it, and now it creates kind of a crater. So this is good. And what I have here is just my test. So let's go back to the selection, and I have my just empty HDA, which takes one input for it. Basically just one input, and this input can be our landscape. So it's very basic setup. So I'm going to show it a little bit later, because I actually have created a little bit of a primer on the Heightfields inside Houdini. Because if you are like me and I really didn't know much about the volumes, in which is basically if you go read documentation in Houdini, it basically says that it's a 2D. Basically, it's a volume without the actual volume of it. So when I think about the volumes, it's basically like this infinite amount of points in some confined space, and for the landscapes inside Houdini, it's basically the same. It's only basically there's no real thickness to the volumes. Basically, there's infinite amount of points, whatever resolutions you want for your landscape, and basically they can just go up and down. So basically on one axis. So yeah, so there's no real volume to it, but it's still, everything else is basically just a volume. So what I have here is I have brought this basically this landscape inside it. And you will see that once you create it like an input inside for your HDA, you get something inside your Houdini, something like this. You will actually notice that there's actually a couple of volumes inside it. So there's a height and a mask, which is kind of your basic. Height is basically a Houdini way of saying which volume do you want to see in a viewport. This is kind of like a default name of any height map that you want to see inside viewport. And the mask is just a mask of 0 to 1 to see what on what part of the height map you want to actually perform, like a road or flattening. So let's go actually through the basic example of it. So I have a basic height field Heightfield node, which is there's only just one point on it, and it's whenever you're working with the Heightfields, these are considered primitives. So you see, by default, it's actually going to create a height and the mask. So any information that you want to edit is going to be on a height field, and the mask is just a mask that you want to edit on what part you want to affect this change. It's very much like a Photoshop mask. So then you can put down a height field noise like that. You can see it's basically just a noise your terrain like that. And then you can put down a road node. You can see we have now routed it. And actually by default, it's actually going to generate a couple of more volumes. And let's take a look at them. And the different volumes that are created are just a result of all these parameters where we erode this height field. So there's this sediment, debris, water, and bedrock. So let's take a look at them. So if you delete, you can just put a blast for any of these volumes, just the primitives, and delete everything else. You can see that it's just a, so when it's basically not showing height, it's just a white block with the dot in it. So there's not a lot of information from it. So to get actually a field view basically displayed inside the viewport, you can go ahead and put down a height field copy layer. So this copy layer is great for visualizing any of these masks because you can take a source height field, which is our sediment in this case, and you can just it's basically going to create a new volume, and in this volume is going to be, as we know it, height is a name that Houdini recognizes to display it inside the viewport. So you see there's a very small amount of like a sediment basically layer that is created by this Heightfield road node. So let's take a look at the rest of them. So debris node, debris Heightfield like that. Then there's also water like that, and there's also bedrock. So bedrock is basically my input height field. You can see it's basically the same. So what we have, and there's also two more, which is the height field, which is the, so we know that height field is basically the end result of this node, basically updated height field, which is this one. And then there's also mask, which we do not see because it's actually, well, we could talk about mask a little bit later. And to get this updated height field inside Unreal, what we have to do is get only the edits that we have created inside Houdini and output it as its own layer inside outside of the Houdini. So this would be like a additional layer on edit layers. So you can imagine we have imported additional layer, which is the erosion layer on top of this landscape. So this is why what we can do is basically put down height field layer node, which is basically just updated height field, which is our height field erode node height field, which has only the height volume and the base volume, which we got from our Unreal Engine like that. And then you can just put down a layer mode as a subtract and make sure that layer that you want to subtract is height field because it's the only one we have working, because we know that we want to subtract these layers, these volumes. And basically this is the layer that we want to go ahead and export back to Unreal Engine. It's going to overlay on top of this one, and it's going to create the same effect as we have created inside Unreal. You can actually check it out inside Houdini too. If you subtract it and put down another height field layer node and just add it, and instead of subtraction, you can put down an add option inside here and just add the subtract layer with the base volume. Basically the layer and the volumes are kind of interchangeable. So basically layers is inside Unreal and volumes are inside Houdini. So basically they are, but depending on where you are working with them, it's basically the same thing. You can see we have gotten the same result as our row node. you see there's a little bit of a height difference, so I'm not really sure why. So yeah, but it's basically the same thing. And now let's take a look a little bit about the Heightfield that we are actually getting from the Unreal Engine. So what I have here is just a Heightfield. Basically, I have, so let's take a look at it. So I have this Unreal. So what I did is basically just, this is a simple digital asset that has a one maximum input is 1. So that means it accepts one input on it. And this input is actually, once you have instantiated this digital asset inside Unreal, you can go ahead and go to the options on it. And you can actually select the Houdini input. You can see subnetwork input 1. So I didn't name it. And you can actually go ahead and select the vault input. So it's going to reopen. You can just go ahead and start selection and then just select the landscape and then just press use it. It's actually going to, if you have your Houdini session sync opened up, it's actually going to output this node inside Houdini. So let's say open up. So it should be now closed. Oh, maybe not. But basically, we are getting this Heightfield inside Unreal Engine. Let's actually take a look at what we are actually getting on it. So we know that there are 2 Heightfield layers inside it. And let's take a look how it's actually going to be represented inside Houdini. So when you open up, it's actually going to show only as a one Heightfield. You can see that even though there are more information, you can see that actually there are 4. So there's height, which is the end result. There's a mask, but you can see there's actually 2 Heightfields, which are actually named after the layers on it. With the there's actually prefix on of landscape layer. So this is actually landscape layer prefix. Houdini likes to add it, so Unreal likes to add it, so we have to kind of work around with it. But basically the base landscape and the flat middle, which is the name of the which is actually the name of these landscape layers, like that. So actually, I didn't even know this. Houdini is actually going to be there's actually a special group, 3D hidden primitives, a group which actually hides these 2 Heightfields inside Houdini. And if you go ahead and delete this group, you can see all of a sudden we have gotten these 2 Heightfields visible. So if you go ahead and delete it, so we have a mask, height, so these are 2. But if you take a look at it, you can see these layers has actually come with the through the Unreal, through the digital asset as its separate layers also, like that. So this is a very powerful way for us to get the layers information from the Unreal. And to get this information back to the Unreal, so let's say we have edited any of these Heightfields. You want to get this back as a layer. So there's a little bit of a setup involved with it. So we can't really go ahead and just export all of these as a raw, just basically adding it something like that. This Heightfield, rename it, and just put it outside as output for the HDA for good results. So to do a little bit of a setup for it. So first of all, there's a couple of attributes that are important for Heightfields to be recognized in Unreal in a kind of a predictable manner. There are 2 attribute names. The Unreal Landscape Edit layer name. So this is, as you might imagine, a layer name of the landscape. So any of these layer names, so we want to set as a layer name for these 2, for our layers that we want to export. So it's easiest to just put it as a primitive attribute name. So this is where I named it layer. And then there's Unreal Output name, which is kind of like a root name of the landscape. So it would be basically the name of the landscape inside the outliner. So this would be a landscape. So for this attribute would be for this landscape, the default landscape, the output would be this attribute, what's its name? Unreal output name would be landscape. And let's actually take a look at the output of this HDA. If you have set up your session sync with the Houdini Unreal, once you have put down a visibility flag on your output of this Heightfield, let's take a look at it. So it should look something like this. So I hit the default landscape of the Unreal and just showing the output of it, the landscape from the HDA, which is going to be this long name with the landscape name of it, basically the attribute name of the Unreal output name, me landscape. You can see that we have set it up correctly because in outliner there's actually the name of it is at the end of this landscape. So but this right now is actually not cooked, so basically this is still connected to our HDA. That's so if we change our output of this HDA, this is going to change. So this is where actually the baking comes in. So what I want to do is go ahead and bake this layer, make it a native part of the Unreal Engine. So go ahead and bake it. You can see it actually went ahead and named our landscape correctly after the output name attribute. And if you go to the landscape, select this landscape, you can see it's actually named layer like that. So this looks correct. And now let's go ahead and add our Unreal output, our second layer. So this is going to be a little bit different because we do not want to create a new layer, basically a new item on our outliner. What we do is add to the same Heightfield item object inside outliner that already exists. So this is where the attribute Unreal landscape output mode. So output mode is basically whether you want to create a new landscape with a new it's like which is basically a new item on a outliner, or want to append this layer, this volume as a layer to our landscape inside Unreal, which is going to be one as a name, as a value. So we want to make sure that this for our additive layers, this attribute exists. If you put down a 1, it's going to be automatically appended to it. Actually, I'm going to, so this we don't actually have to even bake it out. So I'm going to go ahead and make this super small. You can see that it's going to be automatically updated. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go to selection, select me landscape, and all I'm going to do is with my session sync enabled, I'm just going to go and connect the output of the let's connect our output inside here. You can see that it's automatically going to be appended to our baked landscape. So you see, put down the visibility flag, it starts cooking, cooks, and that should be it. Okay, so you just have to click on it. So you see it's basically automatically, it didn't create a new item on outliner, it didn't do any of that. What it did is actually went ahead and appended this layer. So go to the me landscape, go to this landscape, you can see this landscape is added, H Houdini layer 2, and this is actually the name H layer 2. And if you go to the 0, you can see our original one like that. So yeah, we have basically created 2 layers back to the same, basically created the same, height field of the Unreal Engine height field from the Houdini. So this is kind of building blocks for the HDA that I created. And now it's good time to talk about the HDA that I created to help to facilitate this workflow of getting landscapes from the Unreal inside Houdini and back to Unreal. So I deleted the test HDA and I added my landscape IO node, which is the HDA that I'm going to provide that you can use and do this workflow also. So first of all, since I want to cache this landscape outside of the, basically into my folder of the landscapes. I want to go ahead and add the input for my HDA. So there's going to be one input possible for HDA. And what I want to do is make sure that it's a valid input, because we want to input from our outliner and start selection, and then select the landscape you want to pipe into the HDA, and then use current. And just select it and let it cook. And if you have your session sync enabled, it should basically go ahead and this input should basically be connected to your HDA like that. And so let's talk about a little bit about the options on this HDA. So let me make it a little bit bigger. So there's basically environments that you are working with this HDA. So let's say I want to cache landscapes from the Unreal. I make sure that this environment is set to the Unreal. So actually, let's go to the Unreal. So this is the same HDA inside here. So let's say I want to cache this landscape. I made my selection. I want to make sure that my environment is set to Unreal, because this HDA is being used in Unreal. And then I want to either cache or load landscape. So I want to cache this. So make sure that it's cache. And inside this cache, there's actually going to be automatically selected. There should be basically menus for the for the layers of this landscape. So let's go to the inside, see how this caching works. So go to landscapes. You have to point to this folder where you want to basically save your landscapes. So this is where the root folder comes in. So what I did is went ahead and set up my root folder as a landscapes. Select folder. So this is where it's going to be cached. And there's also option for the subfolder. So subfolder is a basically optional field for you if you want to basically use this root folder as your main folder. So basically this landscape should be like a main folder for you. And let's say you have some sub landscapes, like sub landscape 1, 2, and 3. So you can basically put them without changing the root folder. You can create, it's actually going to also create these folders for you in your directory. So that's a nice option for you to have. But if you don't need it, you just have one landscape, you don't even have to use a subfolder. So let me go ahead and cache this out. So everything is set up, folder is pointed correctly. Instead of the caching a single layer, we're going to cache both of them. Just push cache all. If you go back, you can see there's going to be now 2 terrains, flat, middle, and base terrain. And there's also going to be backup created. So backup is, let me do that. Backup is basically created before you cache out a new landscape that you create. So let's say you have updated your landscape. Basically you want to cache it again out. It's going to basically go ahead and save this old landscape to your backup folder. Let's say if you maybe incorrectly set up your landscape, you want to go back, just go back. So if you want to retrieve your old landscape, just go to the backup and paste it back in outside of the backup folder like that. So that's one way to get back your landscapes as a backup. And one more thing I had to say, that it's actually, I did some debugging and take a look at the problems I ran into when naming landscape layers. Let me go back to the layer names. It actually should not be with the white spaces. So basically these layer names should be without the white spaces. So I just renamed them to flat underscore middle and base terrain underscore based underscore terrain, because of the setup on my HDA, how I actually separate the names of these landscapes is actually very well. It doesn't like white spaces. Actually going to show you how it actually works. So yeah, so let's say we have cached this out with your HDA. Let's go back to the Houdini and actually load them. So I'm not going to use this HDA node, which is a part of the Houdini session sync. I'm just going to use Unreal Landscape IO. And to get our cached landscapes, we have to point to the root folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this path inside my root folder. So subfolder should be empty because we are not using it, like that, and that's it. So for the environment, I'm going to use a Houdini. Inside Houdini, I want to load it, and in load it, I want to let's recook top network, and after that, I should basically have my landscapes option as which layers to select. So I can basically select both of these layers. You can see I have and these are very nice because now these are actually cached layers from here, and they do not have any relationship with the actual Unreal project. So like that, or I can use asterisk, which is basically load all of them, which in this case I have two. And you will also notice that there are multiple layers that are actually imported. So let's take a look at them. So there's going to be so there's a couple of Unreal specific attributes, but there's actually going to be our base terrain, flat middle. You see this name, Unreal Landscape edit layer name, and you can see also combined import layers, which is my custom created Heightfield, which is basically just a combined layer of all of the imported ones, like that. So this should be like this could be like our base class for us to work with, like eroding this node and modifying this node. Or you can just edit any of these import layer separately, like that. Yeah, but once we have got it, so this is basically the output. By default, it's going to output everything from here. So basically all 3 layers, and then you can split them whatever you want. And the second one is going to be a combined layer only. So this is easy way for you to not to split them out, like that. So this is good because we have now cached it out and loaded inside a Houdini. And now let's try to modify this layer and try to get the different layer inside Unreal. To save a little bit of time, I modified my height field a bit. So what I did is basically just gave a little bit of a noise, gave a height field erode path. So this is going to cook a little bit. So just to make sure that it's a little bit more natural, I think I even use all the default settings. So let it cook a bit. Right there. See, it's like this water erosion, and then since it's a pretty, I mean, it's not very high quality, high resolution landscape. What I want to do is make sure that once the player walks around with it, there's no these jagged edges. So just put down a height fill blur node like that. So this still basically retains the look of the landscape, but with the blurring, it's actually going to be a lot more nicer to work with. So let's say this is my updated landscape. I got my landscape from Unreal. I updated a bit, and now I want to bring it back to the Unreal. To get the difference between these masks, what we can do is just put down a height field mask, height field layer node, and we could basically just go ahead and base terrain and the required terrain to layer and put it as a subtract. So this would be basically our different layer, and then want to export it. And to help actually facilitate this workflow of exporting different layers, what we can do, what I actually did is created a new extract layer HDAs, which is also going to provide. So yeah, so instead of this subtraction layer node, it's going to be using this HDA. So it's basically the same as a Heightfield layer node added, and there's also 2 options. So updated layer would be this, and then the base layer, which is our base that we are updating, like that. You can see we're getting the same height field, which is just a subtraction, and inside it there's actually Unreal Landscape IO node, which gives us option for us to go ahead and export this layer as a separate layer, and it's actually so you have to also have landscape IO node in Houdini to make sure that it actually goes ahead and this also works. So make sure that both of these HDAs are enabled. But So, and to get this layer outside, all I have to do is go ahead and set, so we want to, so 99% of the time you want to export the height layer difference. You can also play around with the scale of it, but I'm going to just make it at 1. So the root folder is going to be our folder. Let me just go ahead and copy this. Root folder, so subfolder not going to have it. And then we can also go ahead and override the name of it. I'm not going to override it. So this is going to basically set up the correct Unreal Landscape edit layer attribute. It's just going to get this single one and export it. So let's actually just press its cache layer and see what happens. So you go ahead and open it. You can see there's a new height layer, which is named height.bgo. And if you put down a file node and you just go ahead and drop inside here, you can see we have cached out the same file outside. So, but if you don't want to name it height, because height is a universal naming of these height layers, you can go ahead and override the name of it. So override Unreal layer name, and let's just name it something like additional erosion. So now you can just go ahead and cache it out, and it's going to save it as additional erosion. And in this node, you can actually output the cache. Just press on this and reload it. And so now you can see we have only one output, which is the height. So basically we do not want to really touch this name for the height field inside Houdini. It just has to be height. But you can see that Unreal Landscape edit layer name is actually additional erosion. So this means that this layer is ready to be imported into the Unreal Engine. So okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So let me go ahead and let's go to the Unreal Engine. So this is the terrain that we have left. So this is my base layer that I went ahead and edited inside Houdini. Let's go to the selection. Let's go to the IO node. Let's rebuild it. Just make sure that you have. So it doesn't really like to. So there's a couple of limitations for it. Like it's always going to show the Unreal and Houdini. So in Houdini, we can easily go ahead and disable options that are not relevant when working, but inside Houdini engine is actually always going to show even the Houdini options. So you just have to be mindful of all of that. So we have our, let's actually clear selection for our HDA because we are not going to export. We want to actually load in information. So let's go to the Unreal environment. We want to load. Let's take a look at if it actually has updates. You can see it's not updated. It's not updating the. So I went to update landscape, and if it's correct, it should actually go ahead. Layers to load should actually not go ahead and appear all of these options. So you can see there's height, there's additional erosion. Because I exported both of them. So if this is not updating for you, if you are updating, like you just have exported new layers from the Houdini, just go ahead and try to rebuild this HDA. Then it should usually update the menu items. So it's actually pretty hard to get them dynamically update these menu items, but it should update. So, and since you want to update landscape, make sure that you update landscape because we have this. Actually, I do not have it. I actually have a landscape. Oh, I might have actually deleted the last one, so that's my bad. But we can actually, since these landscapes are basically the same, we can go ahead and instead of landscape name is going to be me landscape, just call it the landscape, update landscape, and then just select it. Select it as so additional erosion. You can see nothing is going to happen because as a safeguard, I actually gave this generate output option. So when you are setting all of these options, you do not want to see that HDA are actually constantly updating and putting out outputs for this node. So once you have everything is set up, just put down generate output. Once after that, you can see we have overlaid our height field. Let's take a look at it. So there's nothing that needs to be baked because we have updated it. We are updating it. Let's go to the landscape selection, landscape. You can see we have our erosion path update given to our landscape like that. And now let's say you want to update your landscape inside Unreal. So what I did is just went ahead and created a new edit layer, and I created all of these flat hills. Let's say I want to add some, let me hide them like that. Let's say I want to add some buildings on these parts, and I wanted to make them flat. Obviously right now I have flatted it and it looks little artificial, so I do not get any more of this erosion anymore. So what I want to do is go ahead and extract this layer as its individual file, go back to the Houdini, get it in there, erode it, and then get it back, get back additional erosion layer. So let's do that. So my layer is correctly set up. Let's go to the landscape IO. Let's start by turning off generating output because we want to make sure that we only cache. We don't want to load because we already loaded that mask. So for the caching, we want to go ahead and get our input. So maybe I already did set up this input, but if you are if you are creating new layers, and let's say you have added input for the HDA, and while you have done that, you went ahead and made the new layer. As far as from my experience, it actually won't show these inside the menus, so you have to reselect it. That's a little annoying, but once you have reselected, you should be able to go ahead and select the layers you want to cache. So instead of loading, you want to cache. You can see it's going to automatically start showing some of these items. It's showing all the layers that we have on our height field. You can see we have our flat hills. So Unreal likes to add a landscape layer prefix for all of these. So just select the flat hills and cache layer, and this should go ahead and create the flat hills file. So let's go to the Houdini and load it up. So inside here, what I did, I just went ahead and in Unreal Landscape IO node, from the loading of these, I just want to recook, and it should basically load also my flat hills like that. So you can see we have gotten all of these outside as a combined layer. So now I want to go ahead and erode it and bring it back to the Unreal. So let me do that. For the erosion of these flat areas, what I did is did a simple setup. So first of all, I knew that I want to erode again only the newly created flat part. So that means I want to mask out that part of the geometry. This is done pretty easily because of our newly created layer that we just got from the Unreal. So inside the landscape IO, basically I imported all the layers up until now that we have inside Unreal Engine, which is just 4 layers. And this is the end result that is also visible inside Unreal Engine. So this is the base class that you want to work with in Houdini. And then I just went ahead and deleted everything but the flat hills volume. And I want to convert this volume to the mask. So mask again is this special volume name that is recognized by Houdini, and it doesn't really store any height data. It's just like a mask. It's just like a Photoshop layer, basically. One hides any basically whenever the mask is 1, it's going to apply any changes to it with something like a row node, and where 0, it's not going to do any changes, and anything between that is basically interpolated, basically control the scale of the effect. So what I did is pretty simple. I went ahead and created a mask by copy layer, Heightfield copy layer, because from any of these imports you are not going to have a mask. You're just going to have one layer, which is the height volume. Just go ahead and copy from the height to the mask. Now you have a basically mask volume also, and then you just want to put down a height field mask by feature node. And I just went ahead and mask by slope, and if you put something like this, it's going to basically select everything that there are a little bit of a change in a height field, which is ideal for a meat because of these slopes. Basically, you're just going to select them all, and because I'm making these edges, I just want to go ahead and blur them out with height field blur. And after that, I can connect this to the height field road like that, and then blur it out. And this is basically my newly created height field. Then we can just put down Unreal Landscape Extract layer, and this is a different mask that I want to go ahead and export outside of the Houdini. And one thing to note that by default this height field road it's pretty annoying because you have to basically set up every one of these hydro, thermal, erosions to use a mask. So just go ahead and say that you want to use mask on, and erodibility mask is going to be your height mask, which is connected to the second input. I actually went ahead and created a use L masks preset, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and even advanced, there are even more masks toggles on. So, but once you have set them up, you should only affect erosion only where the mask is, which is these ones. And once you have exported the layer, all you have to do is go ahead and load it inside the Unreal. So I just exported. This is just a recreation of my network because I actually had to redo because of the session sync. Basically, whenever be very careful when you actually go ahead and do your setups inside the Houdini session sync. And if you do not save it as a HDA, it's actually going to always be refreshed once the Unreal HDA inside Unreal recooks. So you basically can lose all of your changes. So that's why I actually went ahead and created a different project for this to show off, so I do not lose all of these setup. But basically, just as I showed, extract the layer with the appropriate name. I call this flat hill road, and then using the HDA here, you can go ahead and load this up. And for me, it's basically looks something like this. You can see I have got my erosion inside here, and if I turn this off, you can see this is my with no erosion and with erosion. It looks a lot better. You can see we are only affecting the mask of the mask where we created these changes. So yeah, so that's kind of the way we can get data in and out of Unreal and Houdini. And that's going to be end of this tutorial. I basically showed the most of it. The workflow for working between Houdini and Unreal for exporting these height field layers. And remember, just go to link in description to get this tool. Take a look how it's constructed, and maybe I will try to document it inside the HDA. So actually, I will actually go ahead and try to document it, the HDAs inside it. And there should be also a help file created for these. I will try to update it a little bit more. If you forget what they do, so press on help button, click for help. So yeah, so that's it for this tutorial, and actually I'm going to make more tutorials with the landscapes, maybe how we can create some kind of roads and cool tools for that, and then maybe even how to populate our map with the materials and all of that. So yeah, so that's it for now, and see you next time.